Pokemon market fatigue and price corrections are seemingly showing early signs, though what does this mean for the future? Now, Pokemon card price movements are very interesting, though before I get into this topic, I actually am gifting a subscriber this Houndoom Master Ball pattern from Prismatic Evolutions. Now, to know if you won this card, if I do reply to your comment with this Charmander emoji, then congrats, this card is coming to you. And hey, if you are a first-time viewer, I just want to say welcome aboard. It's always great seeing new faces on the channel. My name's Phil and I cover topics about Pokemon cards. Definitely feel free to subscribe for consistent Pokemon updates. You know, I actually really like seeing all new people that come aboard. It's always an amazing journey. Though I think there's some very early price movements that are showing right now, and I suppose some early signs of a weakening market. But I think one of the issues here is people have this idealistic view that Pokemon cards just climb and they stay in this green zone, right? It's like an endless line of linear growth. And I think I kind of don't blame people for that thought process, okay? Especially people who started collecting in 2025. For anyone who's entered the hobby within 2025, all they have seen is growth. So how could anyone think otherwise? If that's all you know, it's very difficult to think that there's another side. But one thing people do need to understand about Pokemon cards right now and collectibles in general is that they don't have any utility. So when you're buying these, they need to tick the hobby box far more than any of the investment or profit box because they are just collectibles. And I do speak about something, and I call this the awakening, okay? And it's something that I kind of believe will happen, which is essentially when a large group of people awaken to the fact that what we've all purchased are collectibles. And I think 2025 has almost like cast a spell on people that Pokemon cards are just infinite growth. And no one's really thought that there's another side, and I actually do feel that this allure will eventually fade away. Now, truth be told, the signs of weakening haven't happened all across the board, but there are small pockets that we need to look at. Check this out. All right, the first big one off the kind of list that is kind of falling a fair bit more than you'd expect is the Mew 151. Check this out. All right, we're sitting at $36 in August. Went all the way up to $77, and right now it's come down to $51. A pretty big spike in price, and now it's retracing. Now, the big reason why this one's a little bit more interesting than some of the others I'm going to be showing you is because really the 151 Ultra Premium Collection is a rare collectible right now in terms of the fact that it had such a limited print window. The only way to get this card is from the 151 UPC. Seeing how unlikely it is that people are going to now be opening, you know, a $700 or an $800 Ultra Premium Collection, this one just seems like, you know, an interesting one that has been calming down. To be honest, sitting at $51, that's definitely looking more appealing than the $70 range. But of course, Pokemon cards right now are in a strange position. We are seeing some weakening, okay? And it's weird because you wouldn't think a card from 151, especially with all the people that, you know, are collecting master sets. This card in particular is an odd one to see retracing because, you know, like I said, the amount of people who are trying to get Pokemon 151 master sets is insane, okay? It's probably the only set that I can confidently say would have the most people who try to get a master set. And that really comes back down to the nostalgic ties of Generation 1 and, you know, the original 151 Pokemon and the amount of people who have huge amounts of disposable income who grew up with Generation 1 and completed their Pokedexes back in the day and remember playing Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, okay? All that nostalgia and all that is so strong and so concentrated with 151 that I am very confident that it would be one of the biggest sets that people try to do a master set. And also, don't forget, it's a very clean master set. What I mean by that is if you're doing a master set of something like Paradox Rift or doing a master set of, you know, Destined Rivals, you're not actually going to be getting such a clean overview of your master set. What I mean by that is, you know, with Pokemon 151, your master set goes Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, you know, Venusaur, and then it continues in the line of the original 151 Pokedex. No other set really has that, okay? So every other set, you're getting just like a mix, and even though the numbers on the bottom of the card's code are 001/196, and it just continues, you are not actually getting that in like Pokedex order. And that can be frustrating for people. So I do think because of that, this is a very interesting one that is coming down in price. Now, okay, one thing, if you do own some of these cards, don't worry if you're seeing them drop in price because it is normal, especially after such a huge amount of growth. What's far better is that you get in the habit of tracking your collection over the long term, and that actually does bring me to today's video sponsor, Collector. Now, Collector is a fantastic collectible portfolio manager that easily stores your collectible information in one app. Now, what makes it so unique is that it actually updates the pricing with real-time market updates. So when you're uploading your collection to Collector, you can just set the price that you originally paid for your item. Where this becomes so useful is that if you've been collecting over a few months or a few years, you can really get an awesome collectible overview knowing you're getting accurate real-time market price updates. Now, if you're tracking over the long time, you will see price movements upwards and you will see down moments in the hobby. One really cool aspect about Collector is how friendly it is for no matter where you live in the world. For example, I live in Australia, so I can just easily change the currency to AUD to get market prices for my own currency. Honestly, Collector makes collecting feel way more strategic. You're not just guessing anymore, you can actually track your collection, you can spot trends, and you can make smarter purchases. A big thanks to Collector for sponsoring today's video. All the details are in the video's description. Now let's jump back into it. Moving on to the Kingdra Special Illustration Rare, really awesome card. Selling for 75 US at the top of its kind of high price point this year, and right now selling for $60. You know, a $15 decrease, nothing too substantial considering how much it's climbed in price. But there we can see it, that the hobby right now, people are saying, collectors are saying, hey, I'm gonna just take a pause right now because maybe $75, I don't wanna go that high. And now, it's dropped $15. Is it gonna continue to drop? Who knows at this point? I think the hobby has just so many pockets of expensive cards. Sometimes I get confused how many people are there that are able to even buy all these cards at these price points. Sure, the Kingdra is great at $60. I mean, sure, the Mew is great at $50, but when you really put all these, cards that, are over $50, all of them, you kind of think like, wow, there must be a lot of people with deep pockets buying these because it just doesn't make sense across the whole board. So, I do think that, we're in early signs. Another reason why this is weird as well is because right now, traditionally speaking, is the time when Pokemon cards start booming in price. Right now, you're seeing market swings. But, like when you look at sealed product or when you look at this, they are coming down a little bit. Moving on to the Mega Evolution Enhanced Booster Box. Going for $328 in September. Right now, selling for $260. I mean, just looking at that graph right there, a pretty significant drop for a brand new set. Now, that's very, very healthy for the hobby. I'm very glad to see that, but selling for $260 to me is still way too expensive. It's the latest set we have. It's brand new. It should be nowhere near that price point, but of course, the market is kind of playing out in a very strange way at the moment. I don't know. I think the whole Mega Evolution era will be a bit of a reversal point for the hobby. I think the whole kind of, euphoria that we've all experienced from, Scarlet and Violet and, just banger after banger after banger, maybe the Mega Evolution era will change a bit. I mean, who knows right now. Now, interesting one to look at is the Marshadow Illustration Rare. Now, one thing that if you do watch my videos, and I hope you do, and if you are new here, welcome, but if you do watch my videos, you will know that one big thing I tell my audience is do not overspend on a hype wave, okay? When there is a massive hype wave, always just wait, see what's happening and just wait. One big thing that new people do when they come in the hobby, they see a hype wave, which is probably gonna happen next week. There's gonna be a new card that gets hyped. It's probably going to happen in, a few weeks after that. There's just always a new hype wave. Do everything that you can. When you see massive price spikes for cards that make no sense, just sit there and wait for it to drop. Marshadow Illustration Rare is a perfect example of this. I'm going to pull this into 3 months so you can see what happened here. Selling for $41. Went all the way up in just a few days to $78. That's an expensive card, right? But if you can see right now, look at that, dude. Dropped down to $28. That is such a significant drop that, when you look at that, you'd think the amount of bananas that would have, we're paying $80 for this is insane. And you have to be so careful when you see these hype swings because, I think more people need to speak about these hype waves because they're getting so common, these pumps, these just ridiculous, just people just jumping in, right? And you can buy at these ridiculous price points because, you want to keep up with the Joneses or, you're hearing about, you can see everything and you're on forums and you can see people talking about these cards. Dude, just wait it out. Nothing bad's going to happen if you miss out. You know how many cards and sets and things I've missed out on that have climbed so much in price, but I don't give a shit, man. And the reason why I don't care is because I'm not in this game just to be buying things and making crazy money. You're gonna make mistakes. The biggest mistake you can make, and the best way that you can avoid all this, is not buying when there's a hype swing. At that point, just close it, don't even look at the market, wait a few months or a few weeks to see what happens. Another perfect example is the Tynamo illustration rare. Check this out, selling for 11 bucks, right? Went all the way up to $30, and right now, look at that, selling for $18, you know, just boomed all the way. I do imagine that in a few more weeks that is probably gonna continue to come down, okay? Because you just had a hype swing for no reason at all, and people just get so obsessed with it, they buy, they over leverage themselves, they get disappointed, and then, you know, it's back to square one. I think right now, it's just, there's too much things happening. I mean, I don't know, if you've been collecting, do you think right now is one of the, like, weirder times in the hobby? Or, you know, I'm very interested to know your thoughts here, because my thoughts and how the hobby has played out recently is it feels just so ugly in a way. I just feel like, you know, it's either a card gets spiked in price, a booster box or, you know, sealed products just can't be attained. What's frustrating me right now is that we all know that we would love to get more Black Bolt. We all know we'd love to get more Destined Rivals, you know. We'd all know that we'd love to get more Mega Evolutions and get that price down further. But, you know, what's happening? Oh, no, we got to focus on Phantasmal Flames. None of us have been able to get any product at any reasonable price point this year at all. Why on earth would we want more, you know, Phantasmal Flames and, you know, ultra premium collections and new cards? It's like, man, how can you keep up with any of it anymore? You know, I make content about this, you know, full time. This is literally like a full-time job, you know, close to being a full-time job for me, okay? And I make so much content for you guys, okay? And I am struggling to keep up with all the news. I cannot imagine how much just like a person who does it as a hobby or an enthusiast can keep up. Now, what's more important about all of this is actually connecting with the broader Pokemon community, and the easiest way to do that is on my channel's official Discord server. You can just ask questions, you can be first to know about upcoming events. Hey, you can maybe even post a photo of yourself eating a banana. The server invite is in the video's description. Now, moving on to everyone's favorite, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Booger Mew. Take it easy there, Tigers, because we can see selling for $10, went all the way up to $64 redues, and right now selling for 36 bones. Let me tell you something here, brother. This card is an abomination. Not the artwork, the name. And I've already spoken about this, but whoever gave it that name, you just never deserved it. You know, this Solosis never deserved to get Booger Mew. But anyway, as we can see, selling for $36 right now. But like I said, you know, there were a lot of bananas paying $64 at this point for that card. And, you know, it's funny, right? Because I like the card. I don't like the name, but I also hate the hype swing. I'm very, very interested to see. I can't wait, you know, next year. Can someone just put a reminder that in 1 year from today, I'm going to press that year graph, and I really want to see where that card's going to be in a year's time from now, because will it be more than $60? Will it be less? You know, there was so much hype for it. I do think, you know, it will be interesting, because one of the only things why this card may rise in price is because it is such a hard card to pull in terms of specific illustration rares and pull rates. That might help it, okay? Because, you know, Black Bolt, White Flare, if you know, it's not actually that hard to pull an illustration rare, but when you actually want to go into the specifics and you specifically want Booger Mew, then you're going to be, you know, chasing a bit. You're going to be ripping packs, brother. You're going to be doing the work. So, you know, it's just something to keep in mind. Now, another interesting one that has come down a little bit is Mistys Psyduck. Selling for $75 US for an illustration rare. Right now selling for $60. Now, $15 price drops are not that bad. When we pull this into the month graph, you can definitely see that this month alone has had just some people backing away on some cards. People are not that bullish on certain cards, you know, and that's the thing. Like I said, 2025 has just been a year of this infinite growth, and I don't blame anyone who's come in at the start of this year, or if they just started collecting, you know, midway this year, and they're just thinking it's going to continue to rise. Well, just, you know, back away, man, because, you know, there has been TCGs that really have collapsed a lot in price. Yu-Gi-Oh is a good example. In 2022, when like Master Duel came out, and, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh was just going so hard with the Ghosts from the Past and all that, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh was at like a new renaissance period was happening. So many people were entering Yu-Gi-Oh again. Right now, it's lost so much fandom, okay? And that's something that you're just gonna consider. Pokemon's not really gonna have that, but what it can have is people that just generally lose interest in the TCG. That definitely can happen, especially because we've had new characters enter. What I mean by that is, you've got characters that have entered Pokemon collecting that it's not really a base point for the hobby. It's not just like general collectors. You've got, you know, Sneaker Bros, Hype Beasts, like people that are just like not even that into Pokemon, but they just keep hearing about it. Their friends heard about it. You can hear that you buy a booster box, it climbs in price in 3 months. Now you got all these just, you know, weird amount of just different characters that have entered, and it's becoming a bit challenging for a lot of people because people who have been collecting for a while are just like, well, I can't get any of my product, and people who are just entering the hobby and just in it for profit are also kind of being like, wow, you know, this is a weird hobby. If the profit's not there, you're going to get a lot of these people that leave, and it will be interesting to see how it goes if a lot of those people left and it was just people that just did collect again. I think that would be a big learning curve. Now, interesting one, the Charizard Gigantamax, really awesome card. Just looking at that graph there, how weird's that, hey? It's just, the hobby's crazy, man, because just looking at that graph there, you can see right there on the left, it was selling at one price, had a massive price swing, and then look at that, it's back to its, you know, original price point. It was selling for around 30 bucks, went all the way up to $63. Right now selling for, you know, around $38. You know, that's a fair bit of a price redraw after a massive swing. And, you know, there was just this Charizard hype that was happening, Phantasmal Flames. You know, it's interesting to see that it's kind of retraced. But, you know, like I said, it is a hard card to kind of get because it is in the Charizard UPC. So, interesting right now. Same thing and the same movements for Charizard VSTAR. Selling for 43 US, went all the way up to 75. Right now selling for 52. So, yes, it has had some price growth, but, you know, then it also had a massive price dip as well. So, you know, the volatility of singles is something to be studied because, you know, I don't even know, you know what I get confused? Who makes, like, who just starts buying these? Is there groups? Is there people? I don't know. It's just weird how it happens. Now, one of the more interesting ones is the Bubble Mew from Paldean Fates. Now, selling for $652 at the start of October, right now selling for $606. If you pull this into the 3 months, you can see the actual high point for this was $701. So it has lost $100 off its high point, but really, I don't know, like this card, I can't really put it in the mix with everything because if you pull this into the 6 month graph, you can see just how much it's climbed. It was selling for $300, pretty much doubled in price, and now it's kind of finding a point at, you know, $600. So I don't know, Bubble Mew is just a weird one at the moment. I don't think it's kind of the most iconic card from Scarlet and Violet era, but, you know, at the same time, you know, just too many people have gone bullish on this card. I think for a special illustration rare, it's a very good artwork, but again, the prices are really out of control. And, you know, even though Paldean Fates, you know, it's getting, you know, it's actually about to be 2 years old as a set. Where people kind of go from here, are people going to be, like, is Bubble Mew going to continue climbing? I mean, we have seen examples of like Moonbryon and, you know, the tag team Birds. They've really climbed in price as the top chase cards of their era. So, you know, you wouldn't really put anything past it, but of course, it's just going to have, it's a waiting game at the moment. I think now a market cool off is probably needed, though how far this will go is just really anyone's guess. So even though some cards are dropping a bit in price, there's still some awesome cards right now under $15. And those exact Pokemon cards can be seen in this video on screen right here. Within this video on screen, I go over the top 10 Pokemon cards under 15 USD. You can check that out in the current market. If you enjoyed this video, click the video that's currently appearing on screen. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.